Carol's not here, is she yet?
No, but it's 1:30, so if she joins us, she joins us late. Right. Let me get the agenda up. Right, no members of the public.
Oh no.
No, Brian's not even here. Right. Okay, apologies. You what, mate?
I'll post about it now.
Right, apologies for absence. If we note apologies for Coral, and if she rejoins us, we can.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can do that. Any declaration of interest?
No.
Hang on, somebody's trying to get. Oh, Brian's here.
Oh, is he here?
And Hannah. Right, confirm non-exempt minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of May. Has anyone got any issues?
No.
Are we all happy with those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is someone happy to second that?
Yeah. Oh, well.
All in favour? As I can see
Yeah.
everybody on the screen, so hands us fine. Yeah. That's fine.
Stephen, has he heard you not?
Well, Stephen wasn't here, so it's.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So for him, it's kind of neither here nor there, was it?
No.
Right. Any urgent items of business? I've got 2. Does anyone else have anything else?
No, I haven't.
No. Right. The 2 that we've got, both of them will need elements carrying on to next month's agenda, Ruth.
Okay.
But they can go on today for kind of information. First one is littering on the wreck. There's been a spate of it. So I think if we can kind of put a notification out from the parish about obviously environmental issues in terms of that. What I was going to propose, which is why we'll need to carry part of it forward to next month, is that we actually have buyer notice to go at the entrance to the wreck. Obviously we can't decide that because it's incurring expenditure, but that's the thing that I think is probably worth thinking on and carrying forward. And the second issue people have raised is pavement parking. So again, I think if we can just put a notice out of that when we come to items for publicity. And Nadine's actually got a motion that she's putting forward next time, which relates to doing like a full disability access assessment around the village. Obviously, once the restrictions are lifted and she can go out a little bit more freely. So that will include part of there. So that's another one that will carry on to next month.
Yeah, just before you move on from that, Chair, have we any documentation to know the illegal parking has caused any accidents around the village? Do we know of any information?
We're not aware of any accidents that have happened. It's just it's causing, that's the wrong word. It's causing problems in specific areas for people who are trying to pass. And I think, again, it depends what you've got, because if you've got a single pushchair, it's not too difficult. If you've got a double pushchair, obviously it becomes more difficult. And again, some wheelchairs are not as wide as other ones, and mobility scooters are wider still. So it's leading to people going onto the road when they really shouldn't be going onto the road. Okay. But the discussion that was going on earlier between us was more one of doing a much wider scale one, so not purely on that, but also so that we can really nag Derbyshire County Council as to where it's difficult on the pavement, where the pavements aren't helpful, where they're causing problems and stuff like that. Because as we get on to the next item, one of the things that we need to do is to actually be more proactive in inclusivity and making things more accessible. So if we're going to do that, we need to put his money where his mouth is and actually go around and do these things positively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I raise just speeding?
Yeah, absolutely, Kathy.
I mean, I know the police have actually done something on Station New Road, but but I was thinking of the A61 because people are using that as a racetrack at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, it is quite ridiculous.
Yeah.
So whether we could at least contact the police, that's really what I was asking about, whether they are prepared to do something about it.
I think it's worth contacting them because they're making a big song and dance about monitoring it, aren't they? So I think if we can, let's call them out on it, and do it. So no, absolutely agree with you. So yeah. So if we can take all those three things, Ruth, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Let me start the screen share for the agenda for the other stuff. So just give me 1 minute because I've got that many things open. I'm losing track here. Just bear with me. Right, just for reference. Yeah, actually, Stephen, did anyone go through with you about the raising hands thing?
You're muted, Stephen.
Stephen?
That's better.
No,
Yes.
did anyone go through with you about how to raise your hand electronically?
No.
Right. If you press your participants button across the bottom of your screen.
Is that the orange one?
I've
got a black footer. Oh, participants 11.
Yeah. If you press that,
Yeah.
at the bottom right hand side, there's a button that says raise hand. It flags it up because when we go into screen share, I can literally see 3 people and that's it. So there's the potential if you want to say something, you could be sat there all night and I'm not seeing you.
Chair, can I just try that now then? Just basically just press it.
Absolutely, yeah. Let me get that back
What
up.
we do, go into share screen.
No, you don't need to. I'm sharing screen, so it'll bring the agenda and stuff up. We only keep it up so that as we're moving on, so things can be on view.
Right, okay.
So,
and then just lower hand.
Okay.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So
Okay,
if you want to say it, just do that, and then it pops up on my screen. If I can't see you physically sat there with your hand up, I can see that.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
No problem. Right, so to consider items raised, item 5, which is to determine which items, if any, from the agenda should be heard with the press and public excluded. We've got definitely one motion here, which is in relation to the Derbyshire County Council bit, and I've very quickly drafted a motion. Obviously, we'll go into full detail in the item. I'm not suggesting we move the whole item into exempt, but short summary, DCC, instead of wanting to do the works, they're actually offering to pay us an amount for doing it. So I'm proposing that we actually put an exemption on that amount just until any tender process is closed so that it doesn't influence adversely the amount that people actually decide that they're going to offer.
Yeah.
If somebody knows that they're giving us, say, £100, you can guarantee your quotes will come in at 95. If they don't have a clue what it is, you might get a quote at 50 or at 75.
Yeah.
So I believe on that basis it's in the public interest. Obviously, the slight caveat to that, because of the negotiations that's been going on with the with Ivanhoe's over the Mugger part, we would need to disclose that element to them so that they can do their own feasibility study. So the motion is at this point is not, as I say, not to move the item into exempt, but to maintain an exemption on the amount proposed of the proposed lump sum exit payment being offered by Derbyshire County Council in respect of surrendering the lease for Tupton Youth Centre. That's as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A, until such time as any resultant tender process is closed. So as soon as the process is closed, we would disclose it, and that a partial exemption be maintained on the amount of the proposed sum for the Mugger, so that the Ivanhoes can do their own feasibility study. And again, just confirming the reason why we believe it's in the public interest to do so. So I'm going to stop the share so I can see everybody at that point.
Yeah.
Says he. Stop share. Right, so all in favour? Yeah, Anyone against? No, I think that is everybody, isn't it? Yeah. Ruth, you
Yeah.
were at the HR meeting last night. You were going to guide us whether you feel that that needs to be exempt or not.
I don't think it does in the circumstances. We're just seeking further advice. So there's no names are mentioned.
Right. So obviously that final item won't go into exempt there. Right. So item 6, first one is you, Camille.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a personal thank you, if I may, to some of the residents on the Pond Lane estate, Julie Kersop, Diane Parmalee and former parish councillor David Parmalee organised, they came round to the houses when we had the VE Day celebrations and did a collection for Chesterfield Royal. With the gift aid on top of that, we, as an estate, we raised £500.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So, yeah, we've been donated now to Chesterfield Royal. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank them three for organising that and going round and collecting that, and to thank the people of the Pond Lane estate who actually, you know, contributed and gave their money to Chesterfield Royal.
No, that's marvellous.
Very good.
I
Nice.
think we should have, certainly we've got David Palmer's email address and Julie Kersop's email address on file. I'm not sure about Diane, but we can send a joint email out to David and Diane. And obviously if we can put a notice of on the website thanking everybody, I think that's a great thing and brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, let me share screen again while we go on to the other ones. I'll get the hang of this when we get back to normal meetings, you can guarantee it, won't you? Right, first item that I've put is a values statement. We are, I think we're actually one of the better parish councils, and I don't think we've had any major issues with, in terms of not recognising diversity, but I think we need to be proactive in doing so. So the values statement, which is on the screen, I think has been sent around with the meeting pack, was there. So it is to, as I say, part of it to make sure that we proactively make our services available to everybody, and also to condemn all forms of discrimination, because I think events over the past few weeks have shown that it's not acceptable what's going on, and sometimes saying nothing is as worth as bad as actually being involved in these things. As I say, we're kind of revisiting part of it next month while we start the disabled access thing. I know COVID has kind of hit us a little bit, but again, we'd already made the first moves there with the intention of rotating chair, which of course we will do as soon as we hold annual council, to make sure again we've not got a single demographic, a single any characteristics staying in the chair for a prolonged period. So if anyone's got any comments, or otherwise we'll just move to the vote.
I have none.
No. Right, so all in favour of adopting? Thank you. Right, yeah, next item. Let me get the hang of this again. It's to do with the memorial garden. It's one of the outstanding actions from last year that we haven't actually started yet. And I know it's one that Kathy certainly has raised before as one that we need to get moving on. And I think given that we have got people unable to mourn properly, it might be an idea if we can start getting it and then have a formal ceremony later down the line. Pretty much everything I got to say is already there, Kathy, so I'll go straight to yourself for anything you wanted to add on that one.
Yeah, I fully support this, but can I just raise the question that I thought we'd agreed for a memorial also to Pete Hawkins, who died about the same time as Graham passed. I thought we'd agreed that.
If I'm honest, I thought the tub was for Pete Hawkins. If it's not, then definitely we'll amend the thing there.
Yeah.
But absolutely we can put Pete
It's
Hawkins
really
in there.
it's really a
Thought it
question.
was.
It's a question whether you're putting names on. Obviously, isn't a. Yes, the tub is kind of in honour of Pete. I accept that. But if but his name's not on it. I didn't know whether the intention was to put, if you're putting names with Murray Evans and Graham Parson.
Yeah, I don't think we were. I know when we spoke with Mrs. Pass originally, she was actually very much against having a named thing, because her and I'm always wary, particularly when there's such a long time gone between conversations, I don't want to misquote or misrepresent people. But I know her feeling was that in decades to come, people will be, who was Graham Pass, whereas if there was a nice tree or something of that nature, people can appreciate that in itself. But no, certainly, absolutely amend it and stick Pete on there. I don't have any issue with that at all. Stephen? You keep muting for some reason, Stephen. Stephen, you're muted.
It's bottom left, Stephen.
Kathy, do you want to come in while Stephen sorts his IT out?
Yeah, sorry, it was just a query about the living sculpture. Firstly, is this person doing it for nothing, or are we paying? So is there a cost involved?
We haven't actually got that far, so that's a conversation we would need to have. So
Okay.
as I say, that's why we have the discussion there.
And are we giving some kind of specification? Because a living sculpture could be anything from quite small to quite big.
Just excuse me 1 second, because Carol's waiting to come in. So let me just admit her here, and then we will come back to that. Right, apologies there. I think my general logic on things like that, if I'm honest, particularly when you've got somebody who is, and you're probably actually more familiar with this than me, when you've got someone who is more of an artistic nature, I think let them come up with an idea or several ideas, and then let's pass it around the council and let the council decide. I think artists, they've got that creative streak that we just, or certainly I don't have. So I'd be more inclined to say, come back to us with something, or come back to us with a couple of ideas, and let council decide, because other people are more artistic than I am.
Oh, sorry, Kathy.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's just, but let them know which bit of ground we're talking about.
Yes.
Because,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the reality is we just kind of need to. I think we need to start that. The problem is, of course, I mean, the ideal thing would be to do it when we could have a proper formal opening and have the people there. I think, as I say, we're seeing families who just can't grieve properly right now, and that's the situation. And I think it's just the village really trying to help in whatever small way we can. I think, and that's I think that's my key there. Stephen, are you sorted out with your sound yet? You're still showing us muted.
Can you unmute him, David? I think
no, because he's not muted from our end.
Oh,
I
right.
don't think.
Oh, no, normally this one.
That's muted
Let's
as
try
well.
it.
That's it. I'm here.
Right, brilliant. Now Coral might be muted because I've just let her in, so I got distracted then with Kathy. So right, sorry, Stephen. Do you want to have your say now, mate?
Yeah, the pit tub was Councillor Hawkins' idea, but it wasn't wasn't in it for him personally. It was just about the mining industry in the area.
Right. I knew it had some connection with Pete, and I couldn't remember what it was in all honesty.
That is right. That is right.
Yeah. So if we can amend the wording to it, Ruth, on that basis, and include former Councillor Pete Hawkins.
Yes.
And on the bit about the formal opening, we talked about the relatives
the families
as well.
Yeah.
And just on the living sculpture, David, do you want to just slightly amend that to invite the parish's living sculpture to discuss the creation of a living? I'm just thinking about you saying, well, we don't know what the cost is, and so rather than say, because it almost sounds as though it's a done deal, saying invite him. So is that okay to just amend?
Amend that so that it reflects it accordingly, Ruth. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Ross, you had your hand up. Did you have something you want to say? Because it's gone down now.
Yeah, my understanding was that we definitely not putting names on these things. I think it was more of almost set the garden up, and then people that we either give okay to, or I mean, I'm open-minded on this, or have it kind of people can plan whatever they want within reason to someone that they kind of want to pay some respects to.
I think it needs to be free, not a free for all as such, but yeah, have people, because they could have somebody who if it's someone who's moved into the village, they may want to plan something in regard to a relation of theirs who's died that never lived in the village. But obviously, you're respecting all residents, aren't you? I think that's important.
Yeah, and ultimately, if they're going to plant the plant,
yeah,
and you know, I'm certainly
Well,
open to.
that's it. Yeah, they do it to themselves, don't
I think, as we've said, everybody's important to somebody, aren't they? And I think you've got to do that.
But definitely in favour of this. I think it'd be nice to remember some of these people that have given many years to the village.
Yeah.
Right. So if we
Hi,
can,
Carol.
Hi.
if we can take the vote on the amended version, then with Kathy's amendment and the amendment that Ruth.
Could I also just add, David? Would you have an approved list of what was allowed to be planted? I'm just thinking that it does. It's something I've experienced before. You have to be quite careful in the types of things that are planted there. If it's something that's very fast growing or something that's going to take over the rest of the garden, if we can have a list of approved plants and shrubs that can be planted, because for example, if somebody might want to come and plant a weeping willow, and it's it's just really to just to control the number of planting and the amount of planting in there.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion, and it's probably worth consulting with the person who's offered the to do the living sculptures, isn't it? Because she's got quite a horticultural background, so
great, yeah.
Probably the best person to advise us on that one. So, all in favour? I think that's everybody. Yeah. Right, the last one, I'm not going to bother bringing it up because it's short and sweet. It's purely being realistic, and it's having a fallback exercise. I think most of us are accepting that there's going to be some form of social distancing for the rest of the year. So it's almost to get or ask the clerk to liaise with all of the relevant people to look at having a backup plan for a socially distanced Remembrance Day. Hopefully we won't need to go down that route, but I think if we leave it too late, we may end up not having one at all, and I don't really think anyone wants to be in that situation.
No.
Isn't there a way to couldn't the new Reverend Vicar, whatever her name is, title, sorry, could she not deliver like a ceremony over here?
She's got, I mean, she has been doing them on YouTube, her Sunday services. She's been doing YouTube ones, but I think it is going to be very much a work in progress, isn't it? Because we may be allowed to have a gathering in the village hall, but it may be very limited in terms of numbers we can have. So it is going to be a work in progress. We don't know whether we're actually going to be even able to lay wreaths on the cenotaph. So,
I mean, obviously the other option is that you actually have the limited number of people, so you have the flag bearers and that actually turning up, and then you record the whole thing and then live beam it to internet.
Yeah, as I say, I think we just need to make sure we've got a backup plan, because ideally we won't need any of it. We'll be able to carry on as normal, but I think the odds of that happening, given that it's not even 6 months away, I think the odds are unlikely that we're going to be able to have a normal service. So it's just to get the various people together I know in most places the British Legion actually organise it. Here it tends to fall on the parish council working with the British Legion and the church and the village hall. So it's just to open the dialogue and get some suggestions from them as to what they think they can deliver and what's viable. I did mention it to Lynn. We exchanged emails earlier in the week, and she's up for whatever is possible. And while it's on my mind, she did say, can you drop her a copy of the minutes as well?
Yeah.
So again, just as I say, it's a proposal, but we ought to take a vote just to do it. It's not one to spend loads and loads of time on, because the situation is changing week by week, isn't it? And doing the things. It's just to make sure we're not going to not have a Remembrance Day service, because that's a bit of the bottom of the post. Yeah. So all in favour? Thank you. Right, and over to Ruth for the clerk's report.
Just on
the action plan up.
The action plan.
And just a reminder, I've done exactly the same as last month, so anything where anybody's named has been blacked out.
Yeah, I've with relation to the railings, I haven't got any further forward on that at the moment, I'm afraid. It's something that has dropped by the wayside, but I will try and get that sorted before the next meeting, see if I can speak to the vicar about that. On the grounds maintenance, there's nothing further really to report from the last meeting, apart from I'm still relating to the employee. I'm still chasing the authorities to get the information on that. I don't know why there's been such a hold up. It's been since February, so we can't really move that forward until I've got a response from them. On the Birkin Avenue, this is on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll skip that for now and come back to it.
Yeah. The next two are on Howard. Bus shelters, I'm still in consultation with the insurance company. It seems like they may be having problems getting the money back from the third party, because they're asking for more information on the actual quotes and work undertaken. We have been paid by the insurance company, but they are still working on that by the looks of it. So I've sent the information they require. The next one is on Howard. The Tupton Youth Club building, that is on the agenda. Mobile phones, cancellation with BT. I'm still tearing my hair out with them. I'd had something to say that they'd cancelled the contract in May. They're now saying that they've only cancelled the landline contract. There was a mobile phone on there. They've not cancelled that. I've been on to them today. It's been a complete nightmare. Anyway, that is now cancelled, and I'm still waiting for the final bill. I've still not got it. Claycross Station is on hold. The Facebook site, really, that's up and running, as is the website. The NatWest account, again, problems with this. We've taken one step forward and 2 steps back. They are at least corresponding with me now, so hopefully I might be able to move this on. But there is still an issue that needs to be resolved with them. I'm hoping to get that resolved. I did try today, but failed miserably after 40 minutes. I was cut off. The notice board, again, that's something I'm hoping to pick up on. I haven't had a chance to do that. The defibs, again, something I'm hoping that we can get sorted as and when we start to come out of the COVID. Tupton Village Hall, that is on the agenda again. The allotments, I think we talked about doing something about that for the July meeting, about reviewing the lease conditions on the...
It's also in one of the bits later, so we'll cover it then, I think,
yeah. Anchor Bowl developments, I have, following from the last meeting, I've been in contact with Northwood. I've had an out of office reply, the staff aren't working, and it just says that work has been suspended for the time being. That's the standard response that I'm getting. So we'll just have to wait and see whether or not or when they are going to start the work again. And the proposed orchard off Ankerbold Road, yeah, following on, I spoke with Ross earlier in the week, and we've submitted a formal expression of interest to North East Derbyshire for the lease of this area of land. So just waiting for a response from them on that.
Brilliant. Stephen, you'd got something you wanted to ask?
Yeah, going back to the bus shelter on Livermore Road, the lighting, it says, what was the
oh, yes,
I've brought it up on screen. Yeah.
Yeah, the shelter company haven't been working, but I have had notification that they are now doing limited working. So I can get back in contact with them and hope to get an answer to that.
Because everything's there, it's good to go into it, Ruth.
Yes, it's all sorted. That it was just as I say, it was just the lighting that it isn't lit. So as I say, they've not been working, the shelter company, but I've had notification through that they are now starting to work again. So hopefully I can get a response from that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Ross?
No, it's all right. It's just when I mute myself, you can't. I don't know if it's the settings you've got on the finger. You can't unmute yourself without you doing it.
Yeah, it could be. We do have that for security. So yeah, don't mute yourself unless you really need to. Right. Thank you very much, Ruth. Next bit is general power of competence.
Yeah, this is the general power of competence. Basically. Gives the parish council much wider powers than they would currently have, and in order to become eligible you have to meet certain criteria, and Tupton Parish Council do meet this criteria. The clerk has to hold a silk qualification, and the majority of members have to be elected. So you meet the criteria to adopt the general power of competence. And what this does, it allows the parish council to undertake anything that an individual may generally do. So it increases the power of the parish council to do things that otherwise they may find difficult, or might find that they don't have the financial power to do that. This overtakes the section 137. So if you adopt the general power of competence, you don't make grants under section 137. You will make them under the power of competence. That doesn't stop you still having the same kind of regulations. For example, you have the application form, and there are certain criteria that you would expect people to meet in order to apply for a grant, and certain information that they have to give. You can still do that, but you would actually be making the grant under the general power of competence and not under section 137. It means that you have got the ability to spend money which isn't necessarily for the benefit of the inhabitants of Tupton, which is unlikely that would be something that you want to do, but that is the power that it gives you. For example, under previous regulations, or under regulations if you don't adopt this, if you had an appeal for Ethiopia, you as parish council wouldn't have any financial powers to make that, because section 137, which is your free resource, if you like, only allows you to make grants for the benefit of the inhabitants of your parish. So this widens your power. It gives you more financial power. However, as I say, it's unlikely most parish councils, and that does, in your guidance, you will see that most parish councils would want anyway to ensure that the money they're spending is, if not directly, indirectly helping their parishioners. And that's it basically. It's a very quick rundown, but it's basically about providing the parish council with powers that they may not necessarily have at the moment, to enable them to undertake other things that they may want to consider in the future.
Yeah, I was reading through it this afternoon, and does it actually allow the parish council to access more funds to help other people, or are we still working with the same pot of money?
No, you're still working with the same pot of money. It doesn't give you any additional financial support. What it does mean is that, for example, if you wanted to provide a discretionary service, so not a statutory service, but a discretionary service, and charge for that service, then that is something that this would enable you to do, which would be difficult within your current financial regulations.
Yeah.
I think that the key element is, while in reality it probably wouldn't change the way that we operate at all, it opens doors that are currently closed to us.
Yeah.
So I think that it's designed to free up some of the decision-making process. I mean, I go through quite meticulously when we're looking at donations, and I'm sure Ruth and I probably double up here, because I'm sure she does exactly the same, although her knowledge is going to be far greater than mine, to make sure that we actually fit the various bits of the bill that if we're going to give money out, we can. This actually kind of widens the scope a little bit of what we can do, without us necessarily having to say, yes, it fits this category, no, it fits this one. So it's not designed in any way to bypass things. It just frees up some of our decision making and really frees up some of the more time consuming stuff. And going on to the example, I know Ruth's example was perhaps a little bit more extreme, but I suppose if something were to happen down the road in Claycross and Claycross Food Bank needed assistance, or Derbyshire Unemployed Workers Centre and things like that, we have got the capacity with this to make donations that historically we may not have been able to do. So personally, I'm in favour of it, but obviously it's an individual choice by members. And say that the reality is it shouldn't change anything a great deal. It just means that we've got that little bit more scope that Section 137 confines us with.
Oh, yeah.
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 Just one thing, Ruth, you might have a bit more information on this. In the where it says the constraints on the use of the general power of competence, it talks about trading restrictions and what types of different structures we can have or get involved in as a council. And it says if we engage in the GPC, it says this prevents us the use of community interest companies or similar. Councils may find more appropriate for certain circumstances. So there is actually, it's not all green grass. It does actually stop us from doing some other things. Is there anything that you found that, you know, other things it may stop us doing might be relevant?
Not that I've not experienced anything. I mean, with as David says, to be honest, it hardly changes the two experiences I've had. It's hardly changed the way the parish council worked. It just did widen the boundaries, just in case there comes an opportunity to either, you know, move into areas which we wouldn't normally be allowed to move into, or indeed just be able to help in sort of adjoining areas where currently that would be quite difficult. I mean, under Section 137, I think you have to satisfy yourself that there is at least, you know, one person in the parish that is going to benefit from your grant aid. That isn't necessarily the case in this, but it may be that you would find that indirectly it would help, you know, parishioners. So no, I haven't, to come back to your question, I haven't sort of discovered where it would work against the parish council. Only, I mean, where that exists at the moment, you know, in the example you gave, it exists at the moment, so it doesn't, I know it doesn't help us to do that, but it doesn't stop us benefiting. It doesn't stop us
Okay.
from doing what we do at the moment.
I think
Yeah.
before we actually go to the vote, unless anyone's got any more questions, I think, and I'm not asking the clerk to lead the council in any way, shape or form,
No.
but obviously as the totally impartial body on the council, does the clerk have a recommendation as to what she thinks is an appropriate way forward?
I think it's a very useful power for the parish council because it does give you the opportunity to give aid where you may not have been able to give it before. And it is something that you are required annually anyway to review it. So it doesn't, once you've done it, it isn't set in stone. You have to review it from one point of view to make sure that you still comply with the criteria. So, for example, if I left and you had a clerk that wasn't still qualified, then you would no longer qualify to undertake the general power of competence. So it is reviewed. It should be reviewed annually at the annual meeting every year. So you have got the opportunity, if you discover that this is not something that you want to participate in the future, you would not adopt it for the following year.
Thank you. Does
You know,
anyone
just another thing as well. If we adopt it, does it have to be only adopted at the annual meeting, or can we change it throughout the year if we decide that it's not something that works for us?
Oh yeah, I mean you could change it at any time. That's a fallback situation that makes sure that you are continually reviewing it, as you should with most policies anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's good. I'm happy with that.
You don't have to wait until annual council. No.
Cool. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions that they'd like to ask Ruth on that?
No.
No. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? No. That's it, thank you. SLCC membership.
Yeah, just asking whether the council wish to support my membership of the Society of Local Council Clerks. I think it was something that you did for Carol, but obviously I wanted to formally come back and see if you're happy to do that for myself.
Do you pay per council for that? Because I mean, it's certainly something I would support. It's amazing to be part of that and get that advice. Do you pay per council?
Sorry,
you pay as yourself, don't you, as an individual? Is that right?
I'll actually, yes, I will renew the membership, but I'm asking whether the parish council would pay for my membership, basically.
And this is me being cheeky, is your other council paying off?
Well, they can do, yes, by all means. That's an arrangement that we've had in the past, so I can do that. And what we normally do is, based on the electorate, we would,
Yeah. I mean, if they're willing to do that, I mean, I would support you anyway. But I'm just saying, obviously, if they're benefiting from the same support,
absolutely, yeah.
They're willing to pay for their share, then to me, I'm happy. I'm more than happy to support that.
I think I'll kind of add the caveat. I would actually, follow what Ross is saying, but I would like to add the caveat that if they don't, then we will support.
They will. They have done in the past. So yes,
that's perfect. Yeah.
And I think if I'm completely truthful, it's probably more beneficial to us than the DALC membership, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Well, that one's aimed more at the SLCC membership is aimed more at the clerk support.
Yeah.
DALC's aimed at council support and councillors support. That's kind of how it works. But yeah, definitely 100% support that.
Stephen,
what's the price, Ruth?
It's £44 for the year.
Oh, that's negligible, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the full membership cost, so that will be split between.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, I think as a council we support irrespective of whether they do or not.
Yeah, that's fine.
Kathy, did you want to ask something, or did Stephen ask your question?
It was the same question.
Okay.
That's brilliant. We've not taken a vote, have we? All in favour?
Do you want a mover for that?
I've moved, so if somebody wants to form a second, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, your
The
last
final
item.
one is just really for information. Thought it might be useful just to report back to council for the occasions on which the flag has been flown. So it's just for information, that for members.
Also, we've had quite a lot of positive press for the LGBT flag that's currently flying.
Yeah.
There was one council actually that was criticised on BBC because they refused to fly one, saying it was a divisive flag to be flown. So I posted a picture of ours flying, and it got loads of likes on that same post.
I think the scary thing is that council was actually in Derbyshire as well, wasn't it? Somewhere else in Derbyshire. Yeah.
Watbrook, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Item 8, report from representatives on outside bodies and working groups. Hannah, did you have anything you wanted to update us on? Says he trying desperately to unmute you and it's not working. There you go.
There's not a lot to report at the moment. In some ways, we've got a plan for Carnival Day, so we'll let people know about that beginning of July, about what we're doing. But for VJ Day, we are definitely going down the route of we will supply a candle for every household that will be, it will have information on them about why VJ Day is important, what happened to all the VPOWs and everything like that, with a time to light the candle all as a village. And it'll also have examples of poetry that's been written by VPOWs and their families as well that we've been allowed to use for VJ Day. So it's something that's quite personal as well, going out to the village. The only thing we might need a bit of help with is getting all of this out to the different households, whether it's a collection point or volunteers taking them around or something. But that's the basic gist for VJ Day anyway. But
how is it something that will be delivered across the whole village?
If it can be, that'd be brilliant. Or we can set up a collection point where people can come and collect their things. But we want to try and get it out to everyone if we can.
Would it be viable, Ruth, if Paul is able to use a couple of his days to distribute that?
I can certainly ask him. Yes. Are they small? I'm just thinking about carrying them.
It'll just be tea lights.
Like a tea light, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have a word with Paul. When are you wanting them delivering? What had you got a time scale?
VJ Days in August 15th.
Yeah.
So even if it's just the week of, if needs be, as long as it's out by the 15th and everyone can light them that evening.
Yeah.
But we'll make them into little packs and things that'll just be easily delivered.
Right. And would you be able to email me and let me know where those will be available from and when, etc., so that I can liaise with Paul.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Hannah. I've spoken with Jill and with Dave Holt, but I don't really think there's anything significant to report back. Everything's pretty much still on hold with the world in general, I think, at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. This is the email, so bear with me while I get this back up again. Right, we had an email which has been circulated to members from the chair of the Allotment Association, asking obviously for this to be raised on the thing. Now, I've also addressed, which hasn't gone out yet because obviously it's subject to council's approval, I've drafted a potential response, obviously based around what's in here. First bit, they're complaining that the village green and gardens haven't been cut and such like there. I don't know where some of the information's come from, because they said that the gardener is ill. Obviously, that's not, because June has retired, and I think they're mistaking what Tim should be doing with what he was doing on covering on there. In terms, I'll skip the rest of it because that's a separate issue, and we'll come back to that. In terms of what I've done, I've obviously clarified that we've undertaken the review of the grounds maintenance, and that we're still waiting to be done, waiting to find a contractor for for that part of the garden that historically, obviously, it's been doubling up with other people, which comes to quite an expense. I don't really know where he's saying that the grass hadn't been cut, because it's been cut twice in the 6-week period prior to this email being sent.
Yeah, it has. I've seen it being cut.
Yeah. So again, I'm not really sure where that information's come from, but we have suggested confirming that in there. Stephen, did you want to come in at this point?
Yeah, on your reply back on the second paragraph, you're saying that the grass was, obviously June didn't cut the grass, but the handyman cut the grass. If it's the grass below the flagpole, that area, not northeast, and in past.
But northeast have been doing it all.
No, Tim used to do it.
Yeah, no, they have been doing it.
Oh, recently.
Yeah. Trust me, my hay fever when I've been changing the flag knows exactly when it's been cut. It was actually cut. I'm not sure what the exact date was, but it was cut the day that I went down to put the flag at half-mast for Mick Scott. And then again, it was done the day I went to change it, which in fairness was actually the day, Friday the 22nd of May, that one.
Could it be rephrased then? Because it says she did not ordinarily cut the grass. That is undertaken by part of the grounds maintenance contract North East. Well, until last year, it was done with our handyman, and Paul's been cutting it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to come up with an appropriate wording that you think is fit there, Ruth, just to reflect that?
Okay.
Well, until last year, it was done by our Tim, the handyman used to cut it, and Paul used to cut it at the weekends if he could do.
Yeah.
But was that in addition to North East Derbyshire then?
Yeah,
North East have never cut that grass.
Where?
Yeah, but is that because it's been cut by one of our guys and they've turned up and gone, well, it don't need
No, North East have never cut that grass.
No.
Which grass?
On the flagpole.
Below the flagpole.
I think Stephen's meaning direct. Is there any directly under the flagpole, not the bit to the side?
It's the back of the car park where the green railing is, what covers the pharmacy and the back of the car park. Tim used to cut that grass, and Paul used to do it until recently.
Do you mean the bit near the bungalow, Stephen?
Correct.
Yeah. No, North East have definitely been doing it.
I'm going to say, because North East have not actually stopped cutting any of the grass. I think only this week they've started fertilising stuff again.
Well,
but they've not actually stopped doing any of the grass cutting. So if they've been cutting it anyway, they're not the type of people just to look at a job and think, I'll do that this week, because you know what North East are like. They'll tend to avoid doing as much grass cutting as they can paid for as possible.
Well, North East weren't cutting residents' grass while COVID's been around, beginning of April time. Could they stopped it?
The residents, yes, they did. Yes.
Right,
that's restarting, but public areas they have done.
Yeah. They've been cutting the grass. They've just not been doing gardens. Gardens are starting again this week.
They have, because I know somebody that were moaning about grass all over the path.
I was going to say, I've got councillors Dart and Windlish flagged up on here. Is that you, Pam, or Keith?
Yeah,
maybe?
it's me. When we had the letter, if I remember rightly, I went down to the donations, the food bank on that particular day, and that grass, it was being cut. Now, Paul, he hasn't got a sit-on mower by any chance, has he?
No.
Well, it was someone on a sit-on mower.
It would be North East then.
Grass at the back of the railings. That is because I saw them myself. So
I've seen them, Pam.
It would have been.
Who actually owns the land?
Belongs to Tupton Parish.
What?
The whole area. That's why I've managed to put the community garden in.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
the bit that doesn't is the car park.
So the grass that we're talking about belongs to Tupton Parish Council?
Yes, as far as I'm aware. The car park belongs to North East.
Well, I would be quiet that they're cutting it and that we own it.
Well, no, because don't forget they cut our other areas too. They cut the rec and they cut the.
Yeah, because that's under contract, though, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've not changed the contract, though, have we?
No, but I'm sure they cut it periodically anyway. But they've certainly been doing it.
Yeah, let's just keep that one on.
Yeah, but obviously one of the processes that we still need to do, we're still looking for someone to take over that area. So we do kind of need to. I know Ruth started looking for a contractor there. So yeah, we need to carry that on because obviously June has retired and we do need someone.
Yeah, that's fine.
To take that. In terms of the next part of the email, they're raising the issue that was raised about the bonfires, which Camille had brought up the other month following the complaints that were had. Now, here they seem to be a little bit at odds with the National Allotment Society because I've been in touch with them and I've been in touch with several parish councils, both local and a bit further afield. And Tupton is actually pretty unique in that we're about the only one that allows fires at all. So this is what Ruth was alluding to earlier, that we need to undertake a review, which we're going to bring the report back to the back to Parish Council next month once we've had time to review the lease options. But typically what happens in other areas is if an allotment is on the edge of a village or on the edge of a settlement, they're allowed to light fires if the smoke is blowing away from houses, but where an area is actually built up around the allotment, there are no fires allowed at all. For balance, I approached the National Allotment Association. They actually oppose fires completely. They say that really no allotment should be producing that much waste that it can't be composted. And if there is any excess waste, then they should be disposing of it either through a skip or obviously through kind of like the normal green waste. So obviously that's a work in progress. Stephen, did you want to come in?
Yeah, firstly I should declare an interest in that because I am a committee member, and the Allotment Association does have a skip at the beginning of the year, which is around March, April time, not far after the AGM. So this year they had 2 skips. Yeah. And it was the allotment's decision to restrict it because obviously people having fires on the allotments during nice periods of weather, like a couple of years ago, and it was not being nice to the residents. So that's why they brought it in, as it says on the from the email.
Yeah, as I say, that does seem to be at odds with what other allotment associations do and what other parishes do, in that they don't allow them at all. So it's, as I say, it's a work in progress. We need to kind of review it and see what's happened. I did check locally. I checked with both Grassmore and Wingworth, as they're obviously our neighbours on both sides.
Well, Wingworth don't allow it to talk. Full stop.
No.
And Stephen,
and apparently neither do Grassmore, I'm told.
Stephen, could that allotment site do without having fires?
It depends on the allotment holder. Personally, I won't have a fire there at all. That's just that's my own personal opinion. Because, as you say, if you can't compost the what you grow there, you're doing something wrong. So
yeah. I mean that was also echoing what the National Allotment Association was saying as well. Camille.
Yeah, obviously I've raised this point, but what worries me is the private allotments. Now they're not allowed fires during the summer months, but then the winter months, I'm led to believe that you have to sort of like book it in. You have to tell them, and you have to declare it in a book that you're going to have a fire and it's going to be after 6 o'clock. Now, if that is the case, I don't want to then cause an issue with the council allotments. I don't want the council allotments to say, well, the private allotments can have fires. Yeah. Why can't we have fires? a hazy area for me. That
Yeah.
I think in response to that, we have got to set the standard of what we believe is right. And I'm not saying this is right. This is why it's got to come back to council. So I don't want to get bogged down with the whole debate tonight and end up having it next month again. But I think we need to respond to them that it is being looked into, because obviously this is not the norm. And I mean, we was it last month that we had the notification from North East that they're banning from North East Council land the balloons and the Chinese lanterns. So we need to have a look at it and see what we come up with. But we obviously need to be proactive and get something that is in balance for everybody's needs. And I think that's the key. And as I say, just out of common courtesy, we need to, seeing as they've raised it anyway, we need to raise it and say, yeah, we're reviewing this. Kathy, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I was just saying, we mentioned it last time, but at the time of this complaint, at the end of March, the district council had already asked people not to have bonfires. It may be worth putting that in your response. So that's an additional point. But you've already made the overriding point about British law, meaning it shouldn't make a nuisance. But I mean, if we're going to end up with the same situation going into the autumn, then doing something beyond September, it would still be relevant, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is typically, and Ruth hasn't had the opportunity to dig the lease out yet, my understanding is that typically these leases run October to 1st of October to 30th of September. So based on that, it probably was going to affect from them. But yeah, it is something we obviously need to look at. We need to decide as a council what is the appropriate way forward. As I say, I'm in the process of research, so I'll feed back once I've got it. It's unfair to kind of go forward and say we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
I think in the response, I would perhaps add that there's a thinking about changing the rules on fires. We can actually get their feedback. So obviously, they'll have to go back to the allotments committee for them all to kind of have a meeting themselves about what their response to that will be. And then they'll obviously lobby as they see fit. If they actually say they want to continue with fires, they might even turn around and say, actually, we don't need them. It's probably a good move, because from our point of view as a council, if we're trying to meet, our carbon neutral goals and try and be a bit more greener as a council, the last thing we want is people lighting fires, burning whatever they want on allotment. We have to kind of lead the way and actually say, well, do they really need fires? Because, I mean, allotment's supposed to be growing vegetables, composting stuff, and I mean, exporting goods to an allotment that you can't do it with on that allotment. We're transporting stuff there to burn, for example, because that is actually illegal. So, I mean, there's not really any excuse for, especially if skips are there.
Just a sec, because we've got some background noise from somebody. I'm trying to work out which one it is so I can mute them. But
I just think that we need to kind of, don't just drop it on the allotment committee and say, next month, once we've passed a motion, oh, fires are banned now. I think we should actually say, look, this is our mood. We're thinking about stopping fires altogether. What's your viewpoints on this, and see what they come back with.
Yeah.
And then it gives them time to kind of digest it, and then, whoever can
come up with an idea, doesn't they?
Stephen can feedback their viewpoint at the next meeting.
I think, I mean, as well, they can either feedback through Stephen or by all means invite them. I mean, I'm more than happy for anybody to come to the parish council meetings. It's always a positive. Camille.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a couple of points. The first point is the complaint that I received was before lockdown was introduced. It just so happened to be sort of about the second week in March where we had a bit of nice weather, and as much as the people in the allotment thought, oh, it's nice, I'll have a fire, so was the resident who thought, oh, it's nice, I'll stick the washing out. So it was before lockdown, and it was before North East Derbyshire did come out and say you couldn't have fires. So I just want to clarify and make
and I mean, to be fair to them, they've said that their ruling is that they have them between certain dates, so they stick with that date. And I don't think anyone's trying to paint somebody as being a bad guy or anything else. I think it's just highlighted the fact that we have got a disparity between the way we do things and other people do. And as I say, even between the way that the local allotment society and the national allotment society do it, and I think that's it's something that we need to look into. We all know that the environmental things are an issue. Even before COVID came into it, we need to be more environmentally friendly across the board. So
my only other thought as well was, if, I mean, I don't know if it'll happen this year, but if the rugby club still, do they have a bonfire, or do they just do fireworks?
They have a bonfire.
So I'm just wondering, is there anything that they can collect through the year from the allotment and take it down and burn when they have the annual bonfire?
It could be an option that's discussed in terms of that. I mean, the key thing, you know my position on everything is we don't close options. We have a look. Bear with me, because it looks like Ross has actually got himself cut off. So yeah, I think it is. I think it is important that we do keep options open. But as I say, we've got to make them aware of it. As Ross said, we can't just suddenly decide, oh, we're dropping this on you. But equally so, we are aware it is a nuisance. It's causing a nuisance for people. And we need to acknowledge that, and we've got to have a situation that works. And if that means that a course of action is that if they have one skip a year, as Stephen says right now, and they need to have two, it may be a case that the parish council decides to help them with the hire of a second one.
Yeah.
So these things happen. And so again, it's a case of go forward. I mean, let's logically, if someone's running an allotment, they're going to be a pretty environmentally friendly person.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Yeah. So they're going to be as keen as we are to ensure that that's followed. So with those amendments that have been suggested, is everyone broadly happy with that response? That's Yeah. I don't really think we need a vote on that. It was, as I say, it was purely a time saver so that Ruth didn't end up writing it from scratch. Although she's sat there probably thinking, I've got to add that many things into it now, I might as well have done. Right, let's get back to the agenda. Item 10, finance. Let me bring these on. I am so looking forward to when we get back to normal and people can have paper copies of these again. Makes life much easier. Right, the annual governance return. Do you want to take us through this, Ruth?
Yeah, I mean, you can all either look at it on there, or it's also in your statement of accounts. Under the audit regulations, the parish council are required to first of all approve the governance statement, the annual governance statement, before they approve the annual accounts. So I'm asking you to first of all have a look at the governance statement and each of those items on there to feel that you're assured that those have been followed throughout the year. So the first one is, do you agree that you put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of the accounting statements? Which,
sorry, I was going to interrupt you there. Do you want to, rather than us vote on them one by one, are you happy for us to actually go through them all? If anyone's got an item that they want, a question they want to raise, if they raise their hand? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So that means item 1 means that you feel that the accounting statements have been prepared in accordance with the accounts and audit regulations, which they have been done and are before you now. That you have maintained an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption, and reviewed its effectiveness. So that you've made proper arrangements and accepted responsibility for safeguarding the public money and resources in your charge. The way in which you deal with the approval of your accounts, and the fact that you have 2 signatories who have to approve every payment before it leaves the bank, does give you that assurance. That you take no reasonable steps to assure yourselves that there are no matters of actual or potential non-compliance with laws, regulations and proper practices that could have a significant financial effect on the ability of the authority to conduct your business or manage your finances. So you've only done what you have the legal power to do, and you've complied with proper practices in doing so, which is something you question yourselves each time you have a parish council meeting and you make a decision. You do assure yourselves, or the clerk assures you, that you have the capacity and the responsibility to do that. That you have provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electors' right in accordance with the requirements of the accounts and audit regulations. During the year, you've given all persons interested the opportunity to inspect and ask questions about this authority's accounts. There is a requirement under the accounts and audit regulations for the fact that the accounts are available for inspection. That will go up tomorrow once the accounts have been approved or otherwise, and it will give details of the dates from and to which anyone can ask to have a look at the parish council accounts by contacting myself. So we comply with the regulations in relation to that.
May I just raise an issue there, Ruth? Last year, we took the decision that they will be uploaded to the internet and then just kept there in perpetuity.
Okay, yeah, that's
so,
fine.
We don't limit the period that they can inspect. They can, once they go up by the minimum date, they're there forever.
To that, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. They carried out an assessment of risks facing the authority and took appropriate steps to manage those risks, including the introduction of internal controls and/or external insurance cover where required. So you've considered and documented the financial and other risks that are that face the council and dealt with them properly. The insurance is due to be reviewed and is something that I'll bring before council before its renewal date in October. But you have got the required public and employers' liability insurance. The issue of the insurance of assets requires review, but that requires review annually anyway. And the assessment of risks, further on in the statement of accounts, you'll find the risk assessment, supplied with the risk assessment for 2020-2021, which will also ask you to authorise and approve for the forthcoming year. You approved a similar one last year. So there's not much change this year. I've just added in the issues relating to the coronavirus matters. Maintain throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit of the accounting records and control systems. Again, you receive on a regular basis every month, you receive a statement of the accounts, your income and expenditure, and also your spend against budget. So you are carrying out your responsibilities adequately. Took the appropriate action on all matters raised in reports from internal and external audit. You haven't had any, I couldn't say there were none raised last year, and there haven't been any raised this year, non-significant ones, and the external auditors haven't raised anything.
You know the stuff that is on the internal auditors recommendations, Ruth. There was one about the it was to do with the changeover of clerk, I think. And presumably to do with the bank account stuff. What was the actual problem with the bank account changeover? Was it purely because we didn't have the councillors here to sign it all off? Like, what was the issue with that?
I think it's been inherited. I think it's been exacerbated by the fact that you've had two change of clerks in a very short space of time, and there's just been, you know, the previous clerk to myself hadn't sort of managed to get everything under her belt from the previous clerk to that. So I think it was just a case of the internal auditor felt it might be useful, or it would be very useful, to have some documentation for future reference for any changeovers, which allows that continuity and gives any incoming clerk the necessary information and understanding of the main aspects of the job, that, you know, your financial accounts, your VAT and your payroll, etc. And sometimes if there's a bit of a hangover from one clerk to another, it can cause some issues. But basically, to have a look at ways in which the transfer of responsibility from one clerk to another could be made easier.
So we almost need, not that I'm trying to get rid of you, but we almost need, if we are to get a new clerk,
Yeah.
we almost need to approve when we appoint them, at the same time as appointing them, approve the minutes for the bank transfers to happen and all that other stuff, right? Is that what we're getting at?
Sort of, but I think it's some of it's about process as well. I mean, from previous experience, when I took over as a parish clerk to previous authority, the clerk prior to that had prepared basically crib sheets for everything.
Right.
So you knew where the VAT was, how it was done. You knew that how to run the payroll.
Right. Okay.
So it's like an opportunity so that somebody can actually just walk in and take
Do it.
over.
Yeah.
Without
Right.
any need for sort of it wouldn't really be necessary to really speak to the previous parish clerk if at all possible. You'd have a plan in place to ensure that anyone taking over. And I think the reason he raised it so much is said that, which is an issue that we've talked about here, that if you've got an occasion like we've got at the moment, a situation like we've got at the moment, that the parish clerk could go down overnight. It would be a case of, can somebody walk in and know where everything is, how things are done, what the current status is. So it's a useful thing to have in place, even not necessarily just with the changeover of a clerk, but where you might get a long-term sickness of a clerk.
So is that something presumably you're working on then?
Yes. Okay. And I think there was actually I think Carol had started looking at it. I did find something on the system where she'd obviously started looking at preparing some kind of documentation that helped that. So it's something that as an action out of the internal audit report, something that I can take on and then present to council at some point in the future
Cool.
as a plan.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That you've considered any litigation liabilities or commitments, events or transactions occurring either during or after the year end that have a financial impact on the authority, and where appropriate have included them in the accounting statements. You haven't had any litigation or liabilities, so that hasn't been necessary.
Okay.
And the last 9 doesn't apply to you because you're not the sole managing trustee of a charity. So if you're happy with those, if there's nobody that has any objection to those, I would be able to tick all of them and then ask the chair of the council to sign them to say that that is indeed what has happened.
Do you need a recorded vote for this, Ruth? Or
it would be good. Yes, I'd certainly want to propose a seconder and a resolution. And,
I'll move, Chair.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if we've lost Coral, to be truthful, by the looks of it. Right, so John, are you for?
For it, yeah.
Yeah. Kathy?
Yes.
I'm for. June?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to, oh, Nadine, I've missed you out, sorry. I'm trying to do it alphabetically in my head here. Are you for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got me now?
Yes. Stephen?
Oh.
Coral?
You said yeah, I think.
Coral, just for clarity, were you for?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Camille?
Yes, for.
Stephen? Sorry, Ross?
Yeah, I'm for.
Keith?
Yep.
Yes.
That's unanimous, Ruth.
Okay, thank you very much. The next documentation is for your information. This is the accounting statement, and that is the statement of the balances for the parish council at the 31st of March. The balances brought forward are £53,945, with our precept for the year was £96,159. Total of the receipts 14,787, staff costs were 44,493, all of the payments were 50,998, which means the balance carried forward from the 31st of March to the 1st of April is 69,400. and our total fixed assets are totaling 268,395. And those figures are all confirmed in the background information that I've also included in the statement of accounts. So you will find all the information that supports those figures, the details of the expenditure and the details of the income of the parish council. And also there is a balance sheet which will confirm those for you as well.
That's brilliant, thank you.
There's just one on the in the submission to the external auditor. We have to give an explanation if there's any major variance from one year to another. And we have got quite a variance on item 6, which was your expenditure last year was much higher. The previous year was much higher than last year. So I have to give an explanation for that. And the majority of it was due to the fact that you had quite considerable by-election grants, payments, sorry, in the previous year, which really upped your expenditure that year. And that was the majority of the difference in those costs.
Brilliant, thank you.
Sorry. So yeah, that's the and again, if you're happy to accept those figures, again that will be recorded, needs to be recorded in the minutes and signed by the chair to the council. Submission to the external auditor.
Right, so alphabetically again without missing Nadine out this time.
Do you want me to do it? I've got the list here if you like.
Oh, please, yeah, it's easier.
Yeah, so if you're happy to accept, so John?
Yeah.
Nadine?
Yeah.
Kathy?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Coral?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
And Pam?
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
I think your alphabet went a bit dodgy there as well, didn't it?
Yes.
Right, on to this year.
So yes, this year, so you have now got your financial statement as at the 31st of May. So we've had net payments going out of £13,852 and income of 121,916. So we've currently got a balance of 108,063.76. Accounts for payments are the salaries as shown on your agenda, which you have. And
yeah, I've obscured them obviously for privacy reasons on here.
In addition to those, oh, can I just ask on the DALC annual subs, the Derbyshire Association of Local Council annual subs, they offer two different subs. One is without training. If you pay the higher fee, it basically allows attendance at 3 training sessions within the year. So it's down to you whether or not that's something you want to do. I don't know what you've done in the past, whether you've gone for the lesser one or the one with the training.
Never been raised, Chair, has it?
No, I mean, if I'm completely truthful, but this is me being personal and honest, and I'm not going to influence anybody one way or the other, I really don't rate DALT's training that highly. I think we've done it in-house ourselves.
If I've been to training in the past, I possibly have only done 1 or at the maximum 2 in the year. So it wouldn't be financially, from my point of view, for a training session, it wouldn't pay you to go for the higher one, but it depends whether or not you as a council would want to undertake any training with them.
So no, I'm happy to move that we go for the option without training.
I do.
Yeah, and then that's the 672.91. So in addition to that, there is the internal audit invoice as well, which is £225, which came in after I sent the agenda out. And there's
Just for
also,
clarity, Ruth, we've not got
Yes.
a figure in the O2 mobiles. Is that missing or is
no,
it?
because I haven't had it yet. I
Right.
always put it in, but I've not actually had the figure. So I just like to put it in there to remind me. But it will be reported on the minutes. It will go on the minutes if it comes in between the agenda and the minutes.
Cheers, thank you.
I say the JS Marriott, the internal audit, £225, and Eon, the electricity at 34.56.
Thank you. And then obviously we've got budget against spend.
And the budget, yes, obviously was way under at the moment on the budget heads because we're quite early on in the year. But yes, no worries about budgets at the moment.
Right, I'm happy to move all of the accounts and financial statements on block. Someone happy to second?
I'll second.
Yeah, all in favour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. Right. Item 11, consideration of any section 137 grants.
I've not received any.
Right, item 12 is the NEDC tourism strategy.
Yes, for information and comment, if you wanted to make any comment on it, I've attached it to the agenda.
I can bring it up if people want me to, but I don't really think there's an awful lot in there.
No. So if there's anything that you wanted to include, that they're obviously pinpointing any attractions, that it's if you've got any ideas for inclusion for them.
Not at the moment.
No, I think the anchor bolt thing can go on once things are further along with it, can't it? But
Yeah.
But at this point,
none at the moment then.
Yeah, I think it's a bit difficult to take anything further. Village Hall update. Now, Paul did contact me the other day just to give me an update, thanking Ruth obviously for the support on the reopening stuff. I fully agree that they've taken the decision, the Village Hall Management Committee, that even though in theory with certain guidance they could reopen, they've decided against it. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do in the circumstances, because as they say, that the bulk of their users are either higher risk of infection, or are more likely to be the suspected super spreaders. So and also they've not got the staffing capacity to have someone present the whole day to make sure that the toilets are cleaned in between every single usage. So I think they're absolutely doing the right thing on that one. In terms of the transferring over of contracts and stuff like that, they're working towards it. I think Shelley's been looking at figures and insurance requirements, so they just wanted to update us on that they're working behind the scenes at this point in time on that one. June, did you want to say something, or have you?
Yeah, I've missed half. My internet went.
Sorry, I thought you disappeared. Yeah, just say that they in theory they could reopen.
Oh,
the Village Hall.
Oh, right.
But at this point, they've decided it's not wise because of their user group. It's that their user group is primarily people who will be higher risk,
Yeah.
or whatever. And I think in fairness, they've done absolutely the right thing. I agree 100% on that one. Item 14. Obviously, Ross is normally chair of this. I know Camille sat in the chair earlier for the meeting of the Birkin Avenue group. Would you like to update us on that?
So I'm just bringing my notes up. That so.
Do you want me to bring them up on screen, or?
No, not really. I don't think so. Right. We've had 3 quotes. The first one obviously been from Sovereign, and
can you refer to contractors A, B, and C?
Sorry, I apologise. The first one is contractor A. That was probably a little bit more costing wise, and it included certain things that others didn't, and so forth. 2 more from contractors B and C. We've looked at the cost, but what we've kind of sort of said is that we're kind of favourably looking at contractors B and C. Want to sort of go back to them and get a little bit more detail off them, what exactly they're going to be, so you know what kind of equipment we're going to have on the on the playground. Also looked about getting a path as well, which would be pram friendly and wheelchair friendly, wide enough as well. We had the conversation about what's probably best, that we think coming from the top of Birkin Avenue, sort of weaving, sort of coming down behind the houses, coming down to the actual play area. So Ruth agreed that we can sort of go to them and ask them to sort of quote as well, to see how much that would cost as well, just to sort of get an idea of what how much things have cost. So really it's just sort of coming back to council to sort of just say, are we happy just to proceed with the 2 contractors that we've sort of said on the notes, just to get a little bit more detail off them, get a little bit more information off them. So yeah, I would say about the pedestrian access, and we also want to speak to the local organisations, because part of the funding that we can try and apply for, we need to sort of get letters from sort of local residents or area, people in the area to support the park as well. Do Tupton want this park?
I have got all of the consultation documents here, because that was during the handover, so that actually would fulfil that.
We're going to give the consultation ones, but we thought as well maybe trying to get, or that maybe go to Tupton Primary and ask their, maybe ask the head if is she in favour of it as well. Maybe go to the rugby club as well. Maybe go to Ivanhoe's. And also it would be nice perhaps to get personal ones from maybe some of the residents as well, just to say they are happy. It is part of the criteria to do the funding, so we do need them. But I say we will submit the consultations that we received, but we just thought maybe if we've got a little bit more as well, might work in our favour as well. And say we're just going to was this the one as well, Ruth, that we're going to go to North East Derbyshire as well to sort of get their take?
Yes. Yeah, they had suggested that they may be able to give us some support, and I think members were thinking they would like to see if they could get some independent advice and support about the 2 contractors, looking at the suitability of the equipment and basing it on their experience of working with them, because the contractors are sort of known quite widely. And just looking for a little bit more support, just so that members could assure themselves that they were going down the right path in choosing the contractor.
Because we've got to make sure it's durable, haven't we, and that it's lasting, and and sort of what experiences they've had in the past, if they've had any problems, or if you think company A is better than company B, or
And in fairness, just as a question that I would be inclined to ask, I'm assuming, obviously without going into specifics of the quotes at this time, I'm assuming that there are warranties with each of them.
Sorry, I didn't, David.
There are warranties with each of the contractors.
Yes.
Because they do come back out, don't they, after installation?
Yes, they have pre-installation inspections and before they're signed off. So yes,
I think that was for all of them anyway, wasn't it, really?
Yes, yeah. We asked them all to quote so that they could be comparable.
Brilliant. Kathy, you had your hand up. Did you?
Sorry, it was mentioned eventually, but it just which was about the district council, because I think it's about ensuring that we get some evaluation of the 2 quotations, so we can ensure that we're getting good value for money, and that we are comparing like with like with them. So it's more than just about their advice on those particular contractors and the standard equipment. It is really an evaluation of the 2 quotes.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Pam, did you want to say something?
Yes, talking about the pathway is to be accessible for pushchairs and wheelchair users. Have they actually stipulated what they are going to use?
They haven't done anything regarding the pathways because this is something that's come a little bit later down the line. So it's something that Ruth's going to go back to them and sort of ask them what they think's best to use down, and then get the price as well.
Right, okay, because we have been out and about and we've been to places that say accessible, wheelchair friendly, and when you get there, it's hard work. It really is hard work. So there's people perceive what's accessible in different ways. So I just wondered if any of them had stipulated what they were going to use on these paths.
No, nothing's been said.
We've not even got to that point yet.
Right, okay, thank you.
But when we do, obviously, we're just going back to them for the time being, just to sort of get that information and then also get a quote just to see how much extra this is going to then now cost us. Doesn't necessarily mean we might go with them, but it would just as a starting point. This is what it's very in the early stages, in the infancy of just sort of finding out what's best and getting a price off them.
Right.
Have we got a time scale for them to come back to us so that they can come back to next meeting?
Well, I would want to try and get everything back as soon as possible, because the grant application will have to be in, the next date for consideration is the 31st of July, and I would like to try and get it in, well, way before that if at all possible. So I'll need the information on the paths, etc., as quickly as possible, really.
Pam?
Yeah, I'm still on the pathways. Hopefully they are going to be suitable. But when they come off the pathways, and they're going, say, to the swings, if there's some swings or whatever's there, is that straight onto grass?
No, we're asking, inquiring onto paths round and everything.
Yeah, I think that was established in the previous quote, wasn't it? Surfaces there, it's the pathways.
Right, okay, thank you.
Ross?
You know, are you talking about the deadline for the grant request is the 31st of July? Do you need a final decision on what we have decided at that point, Ruth?
Not necessarily, no. I need the quotes so that I can submit the quotes, and it will be good to include the paths with that as well. I also need the letters of support, and I think if remember, there's also a contributory third party that we need to identify before then as well. So I'll be
what? Sorry,
a contributory third party. So this is about identifying an individual or an organisation who can contribute towards the grant aid. It's something that this particular grant funder requires as a condition of the grant. And what it means is
then give a portion of money, or
yes, they will. The grant funders, for example, if they gave you £10,000, you have to find a contributory third party who will give back to the grant funders 10% of the grant. And I think it's a way of identifying whether this has support at a local level. And there are ways in which we may be able to achieve this, but I need to look into it and come back to you with ways in which that can be achieved. It has been achieved. I've had experience of it in the past, and it has been possible to achieve it. But I think that we thought that there had been an offer of assistance towards this scheme, which is something that I need to look into further. So I'll perhaps be talking to members in another environment and
I think it probably would be prudent to schedule another meeting of the working group relatively quickly once we've got a little bit more background, rather than waiting to next full council.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, Chair. I've had similar experiences of this sort of thing, where in the end they've come back to elected members and said that you are responsible for any shortfall of these monies. So I'd just like to make sure that it's not going to come back to the elected members. You understand what I'm saying?
Personally, you mean?
Yeah, personally.
No,
There should be no personal liability because the council is a body corporate. So the council actually...
Well, we thought that at
decisions
Derby
there.
City, and I tell you, it caused an awful lot of unrest, shall we say. But we did have an insurance that was there to cover any shortfalls of monies for all elected members.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to ensure that the funding fully covered the project, and we would have to make sure that that was in place before actually contracting them to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some money anyway, don't we, towards this project?
Well, yeah, because obviously...
I've got some Section 106 funding as well.
So will that count as third-party contributions?
No.
Unfortunately not.
No, unfortunately not, no.
Oh. Because, I mean, that is a third party.
Good try, Ross.
Good try, yes.
They are a third party because it comes from the housing developers.
Yeah, I could investigate that.
Yeah, it would be worth asking the question. Yeah.
It has to be for somebody who doesn't benefit from the project or is not a contractor undertaking the project. So
it's neither of those, is it?
No.
Well, Section 106 is not. There also are at the time when we first started discussing this, because I mean, our suggestion originally was to ask the public to contribute, and I actually had some phone calls from members of the public in Tupton, people saying they were willing to contribute some. So it may be worth us actually putting some kind of fundraiser together to see if actually people in Tupton will contribute some, and then again that might form part of another third party contribution.
Yeah.
I suspect that might be a conversation worth having with Paul Kirkwood, because he's raised once assuming the village hall's not out of action for a prolonged period of time, he's done quite a few fundraisers for different things.
Yeah. So what's the plan of action now forward?
Well, I've already spoken to North East Derbyshire and asked them if they'll help us to evaluate those two contractors' quotes. And so I'll be investigating the contributory third party, and then hopefully if we can get a meeting of the working party together as soon as we've got some of that information together, so we can move it forward.
Because the way in which I would determine which quote we go with, I'd publish both of the artwork that we've had from both of those contractors, put them on our social media or something, and see which one gets the best response, and post it into.
That's not the only issue, is it, Ross?
Well, no, but that's where you get what Camille mentioned earlier about how do you know people are buying into the part that you're choosing. For me, I mean, the costs between the two are negligible, really. You could almost.
I don't think members are aware of the cost. I think only the working group.
We need to know whether we're comparing properly in terms of what they're offering. That's the point about the evaluation.
We also do need these letters as well as the consultation. We do need a couple of letters. So, like I say, just going to these bodies and just seeing if they will put something down.
Yeah, but that's for the grant, though, isn't it? That's separate.
It's not separate. It's all the same, isn't it? Because
if we could get the grant for X amount of money, which could be for the highest one of them. We don't have to choose which one. That's why I asked Ruth the question earlier. You don't have to choose which one you're having before you submit the grant request. So you put the grant in for the higher amount.
But the grant request is perhaps a little bit more pressing, though, isn't it? Because Ruth's got.
Yeah, but we've got money in the bank to be able to make up any difference. So
can I suggest, obviously, because it needs to go back to the working group once Ruth's got all of this info. There's not enough info at present.
No, but no. Once we get more information together, we can get the working party together quite quickly.
Yeah, I think that's it. Because really, the working party need to have had their meeting and got pretty much everything in place.
Yeah.
By the time we have the next parish council meeting in July.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we really need to get the decision made for the next parish council meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I mean, there's nobody on the part right now because they're all blocked. This is a perfect opportunity for us to actually get the contractors in.
Yeah, it's going to be the least disruptive time.
Because what people will throw at us in 2 months' time is, We had all summer to get it sorted. When parks were closed, what have you been sitting on your hands for?
Well, I think also as well, you've got the people who are resident on Sunningdale. They're less out and about, so it's going to be less disruptive to them if it's happening now than it would be if it's happening in particularly if we're getting into the winter months and we have a bad winter. Then it becomes, it's going to make it nasty and muddy and everything else, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. John, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I did actually. I'm sorry. Let me just cut that out.
John's having a fairground on the park.
never been.
They used to be years ago.
I remember going.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. What I was going to say is we're making decisions here, but it's going to be at least 3 months before a decision can be achieved, because you're going to have the fallow month of August sitting there, and you've got June, July, and August before we'll be bringing it back to the council, the full council, in September.
I think there's an assumption that August will be a fallow month because that's something I've wanted to abolish for a long time, and I suspect, based on what's going on, I think I'll probably still be in the chair at that point in time.
Okay, fine. So what you're suggesting is that we will be having full council in August?
Yes, that would be my preference.
Well,
obviously,
yeah,
that's got to go before members.
Come to the council, yeah.
Well, the idea is if we get it approved by the end of July, the idea and everything done, the next thing is sorting the cash out. Well, we don't need to approve the receipt of the cash. All we need is a decision on which one we are going with, and we don't need to meet to be able to. Ruth can go ahead and get the contractors in as soon as they've given the green light on the cash. We don't have to actually make a decision at that point because it's already been made. That's why I'm saying by July, the July meeting, we actually need a decision on which option we're going with.
Yeah.
So then Ruth can go ahead with what's needed, and then she can plough ahead and take the decision herself on ringing contractors and saying, right, we're going with you.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, as I say, I think obviously we've got to. It's got to go back to the working group anyway. So if we can get things sorted there.
But I think they need to bring it back to us with more meat on the bone. The second week in July?
Yeah,
for us to decide or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if we can have. Obviously, it's dependent on you getting responses, but you know what I'm like for reports. I'd quite like a report that we can sit there and say, yeah, we're running with it. A report and a recommendation, I think, would be ideal if possible.
Yeah.
Next item is the youth centre update. Obviously, the email's been circulated to all members. In short, rather than reading it all out, they're saying that rather than do the work themselves, they're wanting to make a financial contribution. Obviously, that amount we've decided will be exempt until such time as a tender process goes ahead, if that's the course we want to do. My personal feeling, again, much along the same lines, is that members cannot be put in a position at this point in time where they're making a decision without having an informed decision. So my preferred route would be for the clerk to go back to them and say, for the council to have an independent builder go round, give a rough idea whether the amount that they're proposing to us would be a viable amount or not, and based on that, we then decide whether we're going out to tender and proceed with that. But I personally am not comfortable sitting in front of you saying let's make a decision tonight beyond going down that route, because I don't think any of us are qualified builders, and I think it's improper of us to be put in that position.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Obviously, if we can take a vote on that, just so that it's minuted, but all in favour that the clerk goes back with a response to have a builder inspect the building and then come back with a report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks very much. (16) grounds maintenance. There's nothing really.
No, I haven't got anything else, any other update on that.
17 planning matters. Everything's been circulated that needs to be. I don't think there's anything significant that stood out to me. 18 items for information. We've got the 2 from urgent business. Does anyone else have anything that they think's worth adding on?
No, I haven't.
I think it would be appropriate to go back with at least an update on the park to say, yes, things are progressing. We've now got the 3 quotes and we're applying for the grant, because obviously whilst there's still decisions to make, that bit is cast in stone, isn't it? I'm just having a quick look at anything else. Do we put that we've adopted the values statement?
Yeah.
I don't really think there is anything else to go on there. Right, data.
Next flag.
Sorry?
What about the flag? How long are you leaving up the current flag?
It stays for the whole of June. Obviously, if
It's a month.
Yeah, if anyone comes back to us and says that there's a funeral, we'll put it to half-mast again.
Right. Okay.
I mean, that's up to individuals, because some people want it lower into half-mast, some don't. It's
yeah.
entirely
Yeah. Okay.
Stephen?
What about the issues of speeding? What's been raised tonight?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, three items from urgent business. Sorry, not 2. Yeah, that's my my fault.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Right, so date of next meeting will be the second Wednesday in July, is it the 8th?
8th, yeah.
Yeah. What about time? Because it has not been great tonight, has it? It's been quite intermittent. Are you able to make 5 o'clock, Stephen? No. No.
Can I suggest 7 o'clock, please? If up to other members, like.
I was going to say, so my experience from the Wingworth ones is 7 o'clock is an absolute disaster, because the pull on the broadband is horrendous and the meeting just keeps crashing. And tonight we've lost several members. I mean, what do people feel? I'm not precious on.
I would leave it as it is.
We're okay. We're okay with. Yeah, we'll have 5:30.
Does it cause you undue problems, Stephen?
Well, my shift doesn't finish till 4:30, but then I don't know what can happen.
No.
So if we keep to 5:30, then at least it gives an hour's leeway, doesn't it? And
well, yeah, but I'll probably eat my tea again, like so.
Yeah. It's.
We could share it.
I mean, in all honesty, I've gone straight through without any yet, so I've still got to have mine.
I haven't. So would 6 o'clock be better for Stephen?
Well, I was going to suggest 6 actually, like, which would give me an hour and a half, like. So if I finish on time, it should be, reasonable time for me to get home, have my tea and ready.
I mean, I must admit, I've driven over from Manchester today just to make sure I get here in time. So
commitment.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know if Camille does that on a regular basis, right? But can I propose 6 o'clock then?
I wouldn't mind that actually, because I have to change my teaching commitment in order to meet 5:30. 6 o'clock would be better for me.
If we try with 6, if we find it makes it more difficult, we'll review it. I mean, it's the thing with it as it goes. It is an ongoing. It's an experiment because we're working under difficult conditions, aren't we? We've just got to try and run.
Well, my internet's very good anyway. It's a blooming news.
Mine's good, usually.
So yeah, if we look at 6 o'clock, then Ruth.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Good.
And finally, the report of the HR committee.
Sorry, are we doing the other items, or are we?
Urgent business.
The urgent other business.
Oh, I just do them as we go. So yeah. I mean, if you want to add anything more to it, Kathy, please do.
Oh no. I mean, I didn't know whether we'd all agreed that that's what we're going to do. That's.
Oh yeah. No, we just do them as we go along. If they're urgent enough, we talk about them as and when.
So I mean, the speeding, we will take action to contact.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
And we raise the thing. Yes.
So, Chair, what about asking Green Jackets to come in and investigate the double parking and that?
We can ask. We keep being told that they come, but nobody ever sees them.
Is there any chance of us asking for them to like document when they've actually turned up, so we can actually prove to
We
residents
have
that?
put a freedom information request in, asking for times, and they've never ever responded. That was done back when Carol was still clerk. So I don't know if you want to try that again, Ruth.
Okay, so I'm sorry, who are you referring to? The green
The
jackets?
CEOs, yeah.
We call them green jackets because they wear greens, don't they? Because it's private into NSL.
Right.
NSL do it, don't they? The green
So these
jackets.
are the enforcement officers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parking
Are they the
issues.
county council ones?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
it was county, weren't it? But they work on behalf of, don't they now, I believe. Is that right?
They're engaged by county, so they're still responsible for the
Enforcement of.
Yes, yeah. So
And
yeah.
And if any information comes along, is it something we could publish on the
Oh,
Facebook page?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not one for secrecy. We all know that.
Oh no, it's just so that people know that we actually, you know, being proactive, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, over to you, Pam.
Yeah, the HR committee met last night. It was decided that we do still need to keep moving forward with this. There are concerns, especially around the insurance, but unless Ruth had anything back from our insurers,
Not as yet, no.
we're still waiting. So it's
Yeah.
quite a grey area, and it's a worrying area. It is for me. It was decided that the council, we really need to reassure the village hall committee that we do actually, that we're committed to support them in this process, and for them to sort of be reassured that we are still around and we will still be around to support them. We would like the parish council to consider asking the village hall committee for their views on the proposal and any barriers that they might foresee, because it's them that's, you know, it's affecting them, so they might flag up something that we've missed, and also any concerns that they might have, particularly in relation to the financial ability in the transfer, and their opinion as to the level and type of support they might need from the parish council in moving forward. They might not need any, but
in response to that, I can confirm that they are doing quite a detailed feasibility study themselves.
Yes,
so they are aware of that. And I think, to be truthful, we enjoy sufficient a relationship for that kind of open discourse. I mean, Paul and I may not agree on every mortal thing, but we do actually kind of have a relationship where we tell each other what we think and raise issues. And we've been quite clear that we want the relationship to be as established and as good as it is with other community groups, and it needs to be that healthy. It needs to be that free, and that they need to have that. And I genuinely think we're actually at that point. I think we are able to have that kind of conversation. But yeah, it never hurts to reiterate it.
well, it doesn't. But if it's at all possible, it would be helpful for the parish council to have something back in writing from them, maybe expressing this concern or whatever, you know, that any difficulties that they can see that might occur for them. In a view, I know we can't have a meeting at the moment because neither side's ready, but if by July, the meeting, if the village hall committee could actually send us something through so we can look at, and if there is anything there that is a grey area for them or they feel they might need help with, then we can discuss it as a parish council and, you know, just move forward from there.
No, that's great. I mean, Ruth, you're copying Paul in on all these updates anyway, aren't you? Sending
Yes, yeah,
originally.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you feed that back, then they've got,
Yeah.
because I know he then liaises with the rest of his committee, so they have those conversations.
Yeah, well, if it could be fed to Ruth and then brought back to the parish council in July, because we do want to work with them, we do want to support them. That it's loud and clear. All the parish councils want to support them. We're just in a strange situation, and it's quite a tricky situation, and we need to move forward and move out of the situation that the parish council and especially the village hall committee possibly in. We're just waiting for the insurers now, as Ruth said, for ourselves really. So that's a possibility.
Obviously, bearing in mind, I've seen the email that's gone from the HR consultant, and obviously so has the HR committee. I'm not sure all of the parish council have seen it, so would Ruth like to appraise them, because I'm not sure everybody necessarily knows what bit you're alluding to.
Yeah, in relation to the transfer, our personnel advisor has advised that as the employees work exclusively for the village hall, they are, although they may be on paper employed by the parish council, they are effectively employed by the village hall. And it will only require a short period of consultation with them to explain that situation, and then just to undertake a straight transfer from the village hall on paper to the management committee on paper. However, there is, as explained in the HR minutes, there are things that need to be taken into consideration. The fact that the village hall will need to set themselves up to become an employer, so we can't just sort of literally, next week hand the employees over, basically, because they need to be in a position to take those employees on as a HMRC employer. But yes, the transaction itself, the transfer itself, is a relatively simple transfer.
Thank you. And of course, I mean, the other key thing is not just to have them registered, they also need to have the employer's liability in
yes,
place,
yeah,
which you cannot do until you've actually got that bit sorted.
No. And they need to set up things like they have to have a pension in place, even if employees don't want to opt into a pension. It's a requirement, an employer has to have the pension in place. So,
and Chair, if I may, presumably the amount of years served on the village hall will be transferable to the current or the new pension agreement.
Yes, it's a continuous contract. It doesn't break the contract. It will move from one employer to the other. Yeah.
And
on the same terms.
Are we held responsible for any payments should there be an unfortunate issue where people are made redundant, for instance?
At this moment in time, yes, because the parish council are their formal employers. That's and right. That is exactly why we are trying to ensure, because we haven't got a hold on the actual management of the employees, but we are effectively on paper their employers. That is the situation that has brought this forward. And the very reason why it was brought to the attention of the parish council, and why there is this difficulty of the one manager but the other employer, and that's the issue that needs to be.
I think as well what needed highlighting, which came in from the personnel team, was that because of the current status, there is ambiguity, should there be a tribunal or anything like that, over who would actually be taken to court.
Yeah.
I was just going to raise that.
The danger being, you see, in theory, and this was the bit that at first flagged to us, at first flagged to me as a concern, was that as the paper employer, it would be the parish council. The danger, as it turns out, is that because in reality they're employed by the village hall, even though that may not be on paper, then the trustees of the village hall could end up being lumbered personally with that liability.
Yeah.
So this is why we really need to get it sorted as soon as possible, because we've got to protect those people as trustees, because they could end up with a whacking great bill through no fault of their own at all.
And also, is there any, I mean, you might not have it at hand, but is there any people that are currently making claims for injuries sustained while they've been in the employment of the village of the parish council?
They're probably not stuff to discuss here. I don't think.
No, so stuff like that would be exempt, but the answer is no. But if it was a yes, then that would be exempt information.
Yeah.
But no,
I'm sorry, Ross, but it is something that needs to be discussed.
Well, no. What Ross is referring to, there's a difference between exempt information and not. So I think that's Ross's point. Is we're not in closed session. We're even though there's no members of the public here, we are still in a public environment.
I'm just trying to protect the parish council from any maybe claims against them.
Our understanding, and Ruth will correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously she's had a more recent conversation than I have. My understanding is that actually the parish council is pretty well protected. It's the risk really is with the trustees of the village hall management committee.
Fine. That's fine.
Save.
And you're comfortable with that?
I personally
we have the necessary insurance in place, but obviously the village hall currently, because of their
they don't,
situation,
because of them not having that. Yeah.
So that is the difficulty.
Right. Thanks for the update, Pam. Obviously Ruth will feed that back to Paul for him to relay back, and I'm sure he'll communicate with us as he usually does.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any further issues on this, or shall we close the meeting?
No, I've none.
Right, well, thank you everyone. I'll stop the recording now, and